Okay, go ahead, Tracy.
Okay, it's 6 p.m. Let's go ahead and good evening. My name is Tracy Schultz, and I am the chair of the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Reconstruction Advisory Group. I am opening this meeting of the advisory group and hereby call the meeting to order at 6 p.m. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, this meeting is being conducted via conference call and Microsoft Teams. Attendees should note that this meeting is being recorded and will be available after the meeting for attendees to download. The link will be located in the meeting's chat window and will be accessible for 21 days. Attendees should also note that the recording will include all audio, video, and user interaction within the Microsoft Teams app. Attendees calling in via phone will be included in the recording as audio only. Thank you for joining us this evening, whether you are online or dialing in. I'd like to give you some tips to help us have a productive meeting using Microsoft Teams. First, for online users, if you don't currently see your toolbar in Microsoft Teams with your audio and video options, click anywhere on your screen and it should pop up near the center bottom of your screen. Once we open for questions and comments, if you have the raise your hand option, which is in the hand icon on your toolbar, please use it to let us know you'd like to speak. If you do not see that option, you can click your microphone on and off to mute and unmute yourself to let us know that you'd like to speak. It will flash your name to let us know. For dial-in telephone users only, we will invite you to speak after the online speakers have finished. *6 will unmute you when our meeting facilitator, Melissa Bogdan, asks you if you'd like to speak using the last 4 digits of your phone number. Once called upon, remember to press *6 when it is your turn to speak. If you don't wish to speak when you hear your number, no problem, we will move to the next person. This is for dial-in telephone users only. For all participants this evening, remember we ask that you remain muted unless it is your turn to speak to avoid background noise. Please unmute yourself before you begin speaking. Melissa Bogdan will let you know when it's your turn, as well as the next person in line. We ask that you please introduce yourself by giving us your name and community you represent before moving on with your question or comment. Keep in mind that sometimes there is a delay when meeting virtually, so let's all do our best to not speak over people. For members of the public calling in to join us, we invite you to listen in, but ask that you please refrain from disrupting the meeting. If members of the public pre-register to comment on a specific agenda item, I will provide you an opportunity to comment after the agenda item is presented. For members of the public that were unable to pre-register, I will provide you an opportunity for your comments at the end of the meeting before closing. So we appreciate everyone's patience and ask that you hold any comments until the designated time. For security reasons, the chat function in Microsoft Teams is not enabled for MDOT personnel. Please ask questions verbally at the appropriate time, as any posts entered in the chat window are not visible to staff and will not be responded to. As a reminder, this meeting is being recorded in its entirety. Melissa Bogdan will now take a roll call of attendees. Melissa?
Good evening, everyone. I'm first going to call the members, the BRAG members, and if you could say you're here, that would be helpful. I have Jack Broderick.
Here.
Hamilton Cheney. Nick Diotis.
Here.
Barbara Hitchings.
Here.
Jim Moran. Jim Ports.
Here.
Sean Powell.
Present.
Kurt Regal. We have, I'm sorry, Joseph Segal.
Present.
Donald Schloss. Donald, you're on mute.
I'm present.
Thank you. Tracy Schultz,
Present.
and Steve Wilson.
Here.
For the MDTA staff, Jamie Cornelius,
I'm here. I'm here.
Jim Harkness,
Here.
Richard Jaramillo,
Richard is here.
Charles Kenny, Charles Kenny. You're
Yeah.
on mute.
I'm here.
Kelly Mellum, Colin Sweeten,
I'm here. I'm representing the OC. Kelly's not going to make it.
okay, Kim Millender,
I'm here.
Deb Sharpless,
I'm present.
Mary O'Keefe, Will Pines,
Here.
Mike Rice.
Here.
Okay, did I miss any other MDTA staff?
Heather Lowe is here.
Oh, right, Heather.
Bradley Ryan, Melissa.
Oh, thank you, Bradley. Others in attendance. Let's see, I have Pat Lynch.
Here.
Ramond Robinson? No. Todd Mon?
Yeah, I'm here. And did you see Jim Moran is with us as well? I didn't hear him. I think he may be on mute.
Okay.
No, I'm here. I got it. Yep.
Great, thank you. Chris Bartlett? Who do I have from Queen Anne's TV? Again. Queen Anne's County TV? Steve Cahoon?
Yes, present.
Okay. All right, we kind of have a packed house, so let me go through. I see Dave Frey. Can you tell me your organization?
Fry, Michael
Fry.
Baker.
I'm sorry?
I'm with Michael Baker.
Okay. Who is extension 5253? Telephone extension 5253?
That's me, Melissa Bradley.
Oh, that's you. Okay. Telephone extension 2812?
Curtis Coates, Concerned Citizen.
I'm sorry, I had a hard time hearing your name.
Curtis Coates.
COATES? Okay.
I'm from the community of Skidmore.
Excuse me?
From the community of Skidmore.
Skidmore, okay. Extension 8714.
Hi, this is Asia here on behalf of Delegate Sid Saab's office.
Thank you. Let's see. I don't think I've missed anybody else. Other than, Queen Anne's County TV, can you tell me your name again? No, okay. Did I miss anybody else? Oh, and Natalie Henson.
Yes, ma'am, I'm here.
Did someone just join the meeting?
Yeah, Melissa, it's Melissa Williams. I'm sorry, my mic isn't working.
Perfect. Okay,
Sorry.
Tracy, I think that's everybody.
Okay, thank you, Melissa. Okay, since our last meeting, we've had a few membership changes. I'd like to thank Ms. Pat Lynch for her many years of dedicated service to the BRAG. The time you've dedicated this committee is much appreciated. I'm sure you'll be still attending. So thank you for your many hours and many meetings that you attended with us. So may I ask everyone on the committee, the BRAG committee, to introduce themselves. We have Mr. Schloss as a new member, replacing Ms. Pat Lynch. So if everybody could just introduce yourself, and Mr. Schloss could give them a good idea who we are and what location we represent. So if you're from Queen Anne's County or Anne Arundel or what area in that county you're from. I'll start off. My name is Tracy Schultz. I'm chairman. I'm from Queen Anne's County, Chester, Maryland, and I represent some businesses in Queen Anne's County and the Canal and Fire Department. So, Ms. Barbara Hitchens, you want to go next?
Barbara Hitchens, and I am from Anne Arundel County and represent the Broadneck Peninsula.
Melissa, can you get on the list of the other next in line?
Sure. Jim, you want to go next? Jim Ports?
Sure. Jim Ports, Executive Director, MDTA. Welcome.
Sean, would you like to go next?
Sure. Sean Powell, Deputy Secretary for the Maryland Department of Transportation.
Jim Moran? Jim, you're on mute.
Yeah, I know. I got a mouse that's acting up. Commissioner Jim Moran, the at-large commissioner for Queen Anne's County, representing the citizens of Queen Anne's County.
Steve Wilson?
Steve Wilson, representing Queen Anne County citizens.
Thank you. Jack Broderick?
Jack Broderick from Chester on Kent Island. I'm here as a citizen and concerned member of the Kent Island community.
Okay. Nick Diotis?
Nick Diotis, I'm from Queenstown. I have commuted across the bridge daily for the last 25 years and represent people in the Bennett Point area, Queenstown area, and Graysonville area of Queen Anne's County.
Great. And
Nick's mic is very low. I'm not sure if it's down or you're not close enough to it, just for your information. Thanks.
Is it louder now? I'll mute out.
And Donald Schloss.
I live in Annapolis and have been in Annapolis since '76 in the Admiral Heights area. Originally from Baltimore and Baltimore County.
Okay, is that it?
Am I muted?
No, we heard you. We heard you.
Okay.
It's Kurt Regal. Did Kurt Regal join us or Hamilton Cheney? I guess. No. Okay. That's it.
Okay. Nick Diotis has been reappointed for a full term. The Queen Anne's County Commissioners, Jim Moran and Steve Wilson, have been reappointed for a full term. Mike Lord has resigned from the BRAG, and a replacement has yet to be appointed by the governor. The next item for our first agenda item will be every year we have to elect a new chair, re-elect the chair and a vice chair for the upcoming year in accordance with the bylaws. As the outgoing incumbent, I will chair this meeting of the BRAG, and the new elected chair will become their term at the next meeting. The group will now nominate and vote on a chair before proceeding to nominate and vote on a vice chair. Can I have a nomination from the floor to elect a new chair, or re-elect a chair?
Tracy, Jack here. I'd like to move that we re-elect you as the chair.
I'll second that.
I second.
Thank you. We have everyone in favor? Is anyone against? And we can be easier, I guess. Is anyone against? So moved. I need a motion for the vice chair. I'll make a motion for Barbara Hitchens to remain as vice chair.
I'll second that.
Tracy, yeah, Nick Diotis, I'll second that, third that, whatever.
Okay. We have a first and a second. Is anyone against? We have no one against. So for the elections, we'll have myself be reelected as chair and Barbara Hitchens as vice chair. Thank you all and your confidence in us, and hopefully we're doing a good job for you for next year, and not, we'll take care of it next year, I guess.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys, Tracy.
Okay. So the next thing is approval of open session meeting minutes. Our next agenda item is a review of the minutes for the previous meeting held in April. So I need a motion to approve the minutes if there's no issues with them. Anybody have any issues with the minutes? They've been out for a while, so if anybody did have any issues, hopefully they would have gotten back to us by now. So
Yeah.
we have a motion to approve the minutes.
Barbara Hitchings, I move that the minutes be approved.
A second?
And second, Jack.
Second by Jack. Anyone against? So moved. Our next agenda item is a 2021 annual report on BRAG activities. Everyone should have received a copy of the final report submitted to the Governor and General Assembly. I'm opening the floor for any statements or questions regarding the annual report. Does anyone have any comments, statements, or suggestions, questions regarding the report?
You know, Trace, Jack here. I thought it was well done. Covered basically what we did, I think, in a good synopsis. I certainly didn't find any issues at all with it.
Thank you, Jack. Anybody else have any questions?
Tracy, Sean has his hand raised.
Sean?
Yeah, thank you, Melissa, and thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to acknowledge the efforts that the team put in to get the report finalized. Both the team at MDTA working with the committee and then the legislative team at the Secretary's office. It was a great job all the way around. So I know Brad kind of started the effort and then worked everything around. So tip of the cap to everyone. So thanks again.
Thank you, guys.
Everyone is greatly appreciated. This is our first one, so I think everybody did a great job. And if there's any recommendations, we can try to correct them maybe for next year, but I think everybody did a good job and appreciate everybody's time and effort they put into it. Our next agenda item is a requirement of the House Bill 56, which is a report on the group's activities since the last meeting and any recommendations they have based on those activities. As for BRAG duties, they are to provide the MDTA with an independent, citizen-informed perspective of the authority's operations at the Bay Bridge, assess potential concerns about activity at the Bay Bridge, educate the public about activity relating to the Bay Bridge, and for work with the MDTA and provide pertinent input related to traffic and customer service issues. Would any members like to share their individual educational activities and interactions with their communities since the last meeting? Raise your hand and Melissa will call on you if you have anything to add, activities you did for the community.
Sean, can you take your hand down, please?
Thank you, Melissa. This is what happens when Natalie doesn't stay on top of Thank you for catching that.
Yeah, I don't see any hands raised, Tracy.
Okay, if anybody does have anything, or Jack has something, go ahead, Jack.
Yeah, sorry to dominate here, but I've had a number of interactions with different groups I'm involved with, Kent Island Heritage Society, Stevensville Arts and Entertainment District Board, and the Harborview Community Association. And as you guys can guess, the major issue is the age-old problem we have here is the traffic on the back roads. It exists on both sides. And it's just one of those deals where there are more questions than answers. The one thing that I have had some feedback on is that the law enforcement vehicles parked before on the shoulder, before the exit, the exits across the island and over in Graysonville, does appear to help a little bit in keeping people from running down the shoulder and either butting back in or cutting in at that exit. It's a tough issue, but it's one that I hear just constantly. And I one of the things I said this past week and at a meeting last night. So while we have a BRAG meeting tomorrow night, it's another issue that we'll continue to bring up. Again, more questions than answers.
Okay, Jack, you have to thank your commissioners for providing the Sheriff's Department services on the island in Graysonville. They're the ones that sort of spearheaded that move. So
I agree, Trace. And it has helped a little bit, I think. I don't know. What do you guys think on that?
I think it does help some people cutting down the shoulders and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. Delegate, would you like to have your hand raised?
I do, thank you. And I appreciate this meeting. One of the piece of feedback we've been getting as well is a question about previously we had the temporary signage on Route 50 that said stay on 50 to the Bay Bridge, and we haven't seen those signs. I don't know if maybe we weren't seeing them or if they just haven't gone up yet. Because I know we weren't using them, during COVID because the traffic patterns were very different. But obviously on the Broadneck Peninsula, we're seeing that crush as we have in the past.
Can someone from MDTA respond to that? I'm not sure who puts those signs up. It's SHA or MDOT.
And I can circle back with SHA. I just knew that we had this meeting tonight, so I thought I'd bring it forth while we were here.
I would say it's probably SHA because it's past the bridge jurisdiction, so might be a question to bring up with them.
Okay,
yeah.
Will do.
Thank you for your
Joey
comments.
Sagal here. One of the things we've done with our portable message signs is we've deployed portable message signs on the Eastern Shore at various locations to try and certainly message, and that's been part of our initiative for the last several seasons now, to encourage the local traffic to stay on US 50 and not use the local roads as part of our initiatives there. I don't know, Delegate, if that's been part of what our tactics that you have been seeing that we do also on the Western Shore, but that's also been part of our Eastern Shore deployment plan as well.
Yeah, we've seen it previously on the Western Shore. Just we haven't seen it this season, so I'll circle back on that.
Okay. And I'll make sure on our end that they're out, but I have a list in front of me of locations along westbound US 50 of all of our portable message signs. I've got at least 7 locations right here that are all just on Kent Island alone that are, I know from my history, that would be locations that would indicate that they would be used for ensuring that local traffic stays on US 50, but I'll double check with our Eastern Shore traffic operations teams to make sure that's what they're being used for, ma'am.
All right, thank you.
Jack, do you still have a comment before we go to Barbara Hitchens? Your hand is raised. Can you?
I'm sorry. No, I'm good.
Okay, Barbara?
I have seen the signage on the Eastern Shore encouraging drivers to stay on 50, but I have truthfully not seen any evidence on the Western Shore, even the portable signs, overhead signs. There are no signs on the highway, so maybe that does need to be revisited because I know both sides are having multiple problems with side roads and community roads being inundated with traffic once the bridge backs up. So that needs to be something looked at on the Western Shore side to make sure we've got the signage as well to encourage drivers to stay on 50 instead of getting off and trying to take, quote, a shortcut to the bridge.
Okay, thanks, Jack and Barbara, and delegate. Does anybody else have anything else you want to add?
Yes, I do. Hi, my name is Curtis Coates, and I'm a citizen. I live over in Anne Arundel County, and I work for Northrop Grumman Corporation. And I live off the access road on Culvert Road and going to Whitehall and Skidmore Road. Evenings, starting on Thursdays, I cannot get home because there's cones across the road. I should not have to take and go all the way up to 50, go westbound, and get into traffic to come back home. The 50 going east is backed up, and the side roads going to 50 east is backed up. Why are those cones there blocking the road so I cannot get home?
Mr. Coach, you're talking about the cones that are at the overpass, at the bottom of the overpass?
Yeah, right. Where you can go, you make your left turn to go up to towards Sandy Point and go to left to go down to the bridge, which a lot of the people from the Eastern Shore are complaining about the side roads in your area, but you're using the side roads over here during the week.
Yes, sir. So you're talking about the cones right there at the intersection of where the overpass comes down towards Skidmore Road?
Yes.
Okay. Does someone, MDOT, want to comment on that, Richard or someone?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, this is Richard. I'm not sure I'm sure of the exact location where Mr. Coates is referring to. Is that right at when you get off the exit 32, or is that heading towards?
It's off of the access. It's off the access road. If you was going down to the Maryland Bridge Patrol where the cops are, right there where you can make a left to go to the bridge or over to Sandy Point, they got cones across the road, and I have to come out of Northrop Grumman, make a right to come straight, and I can't go any further because there are cones in the road.
So
it's not fair to us that it's not fair to me that I have to go, if I was to come home, to go all the way up on over the overpass, swing all the way around, go westbound on 50, then try to turn around some kind of way to come back east and get in traffic again,
Mr. Coates, you come from Northrop Grumman, you make a left to go home, correct?
No, I keep straight.
Yeah, I think I know where Mr. Coates is speaking about, and I will definitely take a look at that. I'm not aware of any cones there. There may have been cones. I know that we've had in the past, we've had individuals who are continuing to go straight toward Northrop Grumman and the police building and have been circling back because they realize that they've gone into an area that they're not allowed to be in. And so I understand where you're coming from. You're coming from Northrop Grumman and trying to head straight. So I will visit that and see what we can do with that.
All right, thank you.
I think the intentions are, Richard, are to stop people from going towards the police station and make them go across the overpass or back to on the 50 East, correct?
That is correct, Mr. Chair. And what it's doing is it's having for Mr. Coates and possibly other Northrop Grumman staff could have an unintentional effect if I just have to see where that is though, but I will take care of that.
Thank you. Mr. Coates, if you have any more questions, or you can get back to us and we'll try to look into it, but I think Richard will get it straight for you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. If anybody has any comments, Jack, and any community activities they've done, if you could send an email listing the different activities to Melissa so she can keep track of them for the yearly report to the governor again. It makes it easier when we go back and look at information we need for that report. We have that. It would help a lot.
Got it. Will do, Trace. Thanks.
Thank you. Barb, you have your hand up again?
Yes. On the reports, I have continued to send reports to the people I have on my email groups, some of the people on the groups are in the immediate area off of East College Parkway and Whitehall Skidmore. And the other group is consisting of people in North County, South County, Annapolis area, et cetera, who frequently use the Bay Bridge and are very interested in what is going on. And I also touch base on the Broadneck Council of Communities, doing reports for them as needed to let everyone know what is going on with BRAG and the activities at the bridge. So if you need that continue to be sent in to you and Melissa, I can do it on a monthly basis or whatever. I don't know how frequently you want to have those reports.
I mean, Melissa, if it's once a quarter, you think just keep track and send it in once a quarter would be good?
Yes, I think that would be helpful. Thank you, Barbara.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you, Barbara. Does anyone else from the BRAG committee have any comments, things, activities done in the community? If not, we'll move.
Pat Lynch has her hand up.
Okay, Pat.
Yes, I just wanted to add that several years ago, I worked with State Highways. We put in signs that had local travel only. And we were told by the feds, and I think Heather, I already updated you on this. We were told by the feds that we would lose federal funding if we tried to restrict any activity on the side roads because they were paid for by taxpayers, taxes, and that they had the right to use East College Parkway, even if they were still trying to get over the Bay Bridge. So all of those jumpers who moved off Route 50 and tried to use the side roads, the parallel roads to save time, we couldn't stop them. We have the signs still up there, but nobody pays any attention to them.
Yeah, this is what Jim Porcher would give us a paper on a year ago, probably explaining all that we cannot restrict people from using the side roads. This is the same issue we've had on the Eastern Shore, Western Shore. Until there's some kind of law change or something, there's nothing much we can do about it. But I think you put all the signs up you want, but I think Waze app outweighs everybody's signs. People don't even look up at the signs or looking at their phones now, I think so. I mean, some people, it does help, but most people are looking at their phones at the Waze app, and it's sort of, they don't even pay attention to signs or police officers sitting anywhere a lot of times. So.
Hey, Tracy, this is Will Pines, Chief Operating Officer for MDTA. I was out there looking at the construction on July 1st, and I don't know, Melissa, I can email you the photo if you'd like to share it, or I could share the screen quickly to show the sign that is there on the Western Shore right now.
Go ahead and share it, Will. That's fine.
This was taken on, the photo you see on the screen here was taken on July 1st. I can possibly, I see a lot of squinting eyes. Maybe I should try to zoom in here. You able to see that better?
Yes, we can see it fine.
Okay.
I think a lot of people are already on the back roads before they get to that point.
Sure. I believe there's other signing, but as Joey had mentioned, you know, MDTA and MDOT SHA will work together to take another fresh look at the signing, and especially in relation to some of the ongoing shoulder closures for the construction.
Thanks, Will. Okay, anybody else? Delegate, you have your hand up?
Yeah, just adding on to that, it's correct. By the time they get to that signage, they're usually already on the side roads. But we did previously have the temporary electronic signs back before Baydale Drive. We actually had them back to the overpass previously, and I do think that they did help keep people on Route 50.
Okay.
Yeah, agreed. And I do believe that my list still has them out as deployed. So I need to double check with my teams. I still have them out as deployed assets that we activate for our Eastern Shore traffic operations. So those messages should be out. I don't have anything to the contrary that they're not, but I'll double check to make sure that those messages are going out.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yes.
Will, Jack here. I would say, man, the more you can put out signs, the better it is. It just, I hate to say it, kind of bombard the traffic because they want to ignore those things. You know, they're like that little sign that's on the side of the road. I don't think that has much effect. I think the larger electronic signs, the more they are, the better they are, man. I mean, it's a little bit, but it could help.
Okay. Thank you, Rob, for your comments. Is there any more comments before we move on? I'd like to say, anybody has any activities they've been doing in the public, if you could email them to Melissa so she can keep track of them every quarter. And would, like say, help with a year-end report. Okay, our next agenda item are some updates on current projects from acting MDTA Chief Engineer Jim Harkness, MDOT SHA Deputy Administrator for Operations Joseph Sagel. You want to start, Jim, or which one of you?
Yeah.
Up to you.
I'll start, as long as Joey doesn't mind.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of BRAG. As Tracy said, my name is Jim Harkness. I'm the acting chief engineer for MDTA. So on your screen, you'll see a list of our capital projects currently underway at the Bay Bridge. This, is mostly the same list as was reported at our last meeting in April. There were a couple of changes. We wrapped up 2 projects, and so that leaves us with currently 7 active projects in construction. 1 project that's in the procurement phase that's will be soon heading to construction, and we have 3 projects that are currently in design. So one of the projects that dropped off was our project for the westbound suspension span rehab. That project wrapped up, successfully completed, and we closed that project out. Our other project that dropped off was the miscellaneous rehabilitation of the suspension spans, and so that project was on both eastbound and westbound, and again we wrapped that up, so we removed it from the project list. So for the projects that remain, and this is again in construction, we have the first project is BB 2757R, which is the replacement of the 5 kilovolt feeder on the eastbound span, and then modifications on the westbound span as well. So that project has been under construction for a while now. That project is mainly accessed from below, so there's not a need necessarily for closures or night work. This project, as I said, replaces the 5 kilovolt electrical feeder system. It has upgrades that allow us to monitor the electrical systems that are on the bridge. It will allow for remote monitoring and control of those systems. It makes the system more reliable. We have automatic transfer switches. We're upgrading the transformers from both sides of the bridge, and we're essentially making the bridge a large redundant loop, so that should something fail out in the middle of the bridge, that we can backfeed from one of the sides of the bridge. If BGE should lose, if we lose the BGE feed, we can feed the bridge from Delmarva and vice versa. So that's the update for that project. Next, we have BB 2819, which is the deck rehabilitation and miscellaneous modifications project. So some recent accomplishments for that are we continued with the rail post replacements. We now have 193 out of the 207 complete. We have all 22 of the expansion joints completed. So we wrapped that up. We completed those actually before Memorial Day. So I think the last one cured on 5/18. So May 18th, we were done with the plates from the bridge. Additionally, we are now working on gantry replacements. So the structures that hold the lane use control signals, signs, and cameras, those are being replaced under this contract. So they are actively out there working at night to replace those structures. And coming up at the activities, we'll have some asphalt paving on the approach roadways, as well as continuing with the gantry replacements. My next project is BB 3002. So that's our task order based contract for the bridge to perform structural steel repairs, concrete items that show up. These are, you know, anything that is found during an inspection. We can utilize this contract to get out there and repair it. We actually extended this contract because the next other contract we needed to gap it. So this contract was being performed successfully, and we extended it a bit to cover until the next on-call could come online. Next, we have BB 3007, which is the project to rehabilitate the maintenance access facilities for both bridges. This is things like the catwalks and access ladders and hatches, doors, things that we utilize below the bridge. So the contractor is currently working on those repairs, and mostly these are in some limited daytime length work, but mostly work from below the bridge that doesn't require impacts to traffic. Our next project is BB 3008. That's the Bay Bridge automated crossover lane closure system, which is on the eastern shore. This was the first project that was out of the gate. So this project installs the new lane control signal gantries, the new signs, new illuminated pavement markings, as well as the gates system that would be for the eastern shore for westbound traffic, and that crossover on the eastern shore. So recently they've completed foundation work for the gates and for the electrical cabinets. They'll be soon starting to work on the gantry foundations and taking delivery of the steel. And then they'll be working to start to set the gate arms and work on the motors and install the electrical cabinets on those foundations. Our next project is a small project, BB 3009. That's a generator replacement. So this project had installed the generator for the police building, and we actually had additional work to set up a platform for accessing that, and because of some material delays, that has taken a little bit longer than we had expected, but we're looking to have delivery here this month and also complete the install this month. The last project we have in construction right now is BB 3019. That's the emergency AET conversion contract that also included the automated lane closure system. This is for the western shore. So this project has been working on trenching and boring for the electrical and the communications portions of the project, and the lane use gantries that's on the again, on the Western Shore on the approach to the bridge. So they have been working along Whitehall Road, along College Parkway, as well as along the US 50. So they've been working on installing the caissons for that, which is you would see some of the cranes and the drilling equipment for that. They've completed some of the foundations, and they've also completed demolition of the old toll plaza. So upcoming work will be that they continue with that trenching and boring to complete that work along Whitehall, College Parkway, as well as US 50. They'll also continue with the drilling of those caissons and the pouring of the gantry foundations. That work is utilizing some off-peak lane closures, mostly along US 50, trying to work behind from the shoulder, not trying to have any lane closures. And then on Whitehall and College Parkway, they are utilizing daytime flagging operations to allow them to perform work in the daytime from those side roads.
Jim, I just wanted to point out we had sent around the Gates flyer that posted to the web that was under that project, which is shown on the screen as well, which is on the social media and web pages. We sent it also to the BRAG members today.
Right, that's for both 3008 and 3014. Okay, our next project, which is the one project that we have in procurement, that's BB 3013R. That was the replacement contract for BB 3002. So that's our new on-call contract that will again allow us to address priority defects from our inspection findings. And that project is expected to receive notice to proceed this August. So we should have that online soon.
Jim, Delegate Bagna has her hand up.
Oh, sorry. Did not.
Just a quick question. I know you had mentioned you sent that graphic around to the BRAG members. Did you send that to the Anne Arundel County delegation as well? And if not, could you, so that we can parrot it out as well and get it in front of as many people as possible?
Perfect. Will do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So our moving into our design projects, we have BB 2726, which is the rehabilitation of the decks of the eastbound span, and this is particularly regarding phase 1, which we're utilizing a CMAR procurement method. So we have awarded that contract, and so we had presented that to the board and 2 months ago, back in May, and we received approval for that. So we will be issuing the notice to proceed with that contractor, and then we'll be really kicking off and jump-starting design with that contractor on board so that they can help inform us of the best way to proceed with that contract. And that contract will again be replacing portions of the deck for the eastbound span. Again, we're going to be utilizing overnight bridge closures, and we don't expect to have to utilize, will be definitely minimized impact to traveling public, to customers with this project. So that's a key part of bringing this contractor on board, to understand what can be done in an overnight period and drawing on their experience with that. So brings us to BB 3004, which is a project to construct a project management office and maintenance equipment storage building. So this is sort of on that campus for the bridge that sits to the south side of the bridge on the Western Shore. We'll be adding a new building there, and that project is still wrapping up design and we anticipate that we would advertise that project this December with a notice to proceed early next spring for construction. And our last project is BB 3012. That's again our queue detection system. That is a project again that we're working in coordination with SHA as well as the University of Maryland. We'll be installing cameras and microwave detection systems that will be utilized to monitor the conditions on both approaches to the bridge, so that we can understand the volumes that are coming in, the levels of queues, and that will help to inform operations for managing that capacity that we have on the bridge and getting into and out of two-way as appropriate. So I think at this time I can answer any questions. That's all the projects that I had to update you on.
Okay, we have hand raised, Pat Lynch. Question?
Yes, my question is, on BB 3004, where exactly will that project management office and maintenance equipment storage building be located?
It's along Old Ferry Slip Road. As you go towards the water, and actually it kind of curves south towards Northrop Grumman. It'll be located back there.
And we talked about it at the last meeting. It's located, clean up the area where the construction equipment sits at, correct?
It'll be we hope we won't have as many trailers, because that's what this building would be. One of the buildings would be to house our construction inspection staff.
Nick, you have a comment?
I wanted to ask, is there a rendering, a drawing, a sketch of what's going to be on the approach eastbound to the bridge? Right now, I was there tonight. You probably know somebody broke down, or there was a rear end collision at the overpass for Sandy Point, and I was probably 35 minutes to get from Wawa to the bridge, and that's miles that is, but. The point is, though, all that confusion, all that construction, all those cranes, Jersey wall. If you had a flat tire, you'd stop in the middle of the street. I'm just curious how that's all going to look when you finally get it finished, and how well it'll streamline things there. And because I assume it will streamline that problem. And so, is there a picture? Is there something we can see, the public, how that's going to look? Maybe from Jamal's Bay to the bridge. I have to go all the way back to Seven River.
Nick, this is Melissa Bogdan. We do have a cashless tolling webpage, which shows some renderings and boards for the Bay Bridge. So I can send the link around. It has from our past meetings for this project.
And those are kind of accurate, not just wishes, pictures.
Well, the rendering is of the toll plaza area, because that was sort of the main change that you would recognize would be, the old physical toll plaza being removed and then replaced essentially by just, 3 highway lanes.
How do you take your hand down?
In terms of the rest of the system, I believe we've shared the video that we put together for 3008, which even though it's depicting the westbound approach, the eastbound approach would essentially present in much the same fashion, with the overhead lane use control signals, as well as the gates on the side of the road.
Thank you, Mo. Thank you. James, and thanks, Melissa, for sending that around. I'll get to look at it again.
Anyone else have any comments while Jim's on here, so we can move on next to Joe with the Deputy Administrator for Operations for MDOT SHA.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Appreciate it and appreciate being able to give an update to the BRAG today on our efforts. MDOT SHA is heavily involved. I'm here for Administrator Tim Smith, who's on leave this week. We're right in the middle of our Eastern Shore Traffic Operations Program, which deploys our resources heavily on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays on the Eastern and the Western Shores to proactively patrol with our emergency patrol units, monitor our ITS, our Intelligent Transportation Systems devices, and filter information while working with the Maryland Transportation Authority and other credible sources that are calling in incidents, breakdowns, disabled motorists, lane disrupting incidents when they occur, to alert motorists with traveler information on our overhead signs and our portable changeable message signs, and things that affect traffic flow, and get motorists that are in need of assistance moving along quickly and rapidly. One of those things that we've seen this year is some changes in trends of travel. Just recently, we started noticing some changes in Thursday travels. So we started adding some resources to Thursday afternoons and started adding some additional patrols to the US 50 corridor through Annapolis for some of the congestion that we've been seeing in an effort to help mitigate those things when they occur. So that we can be readily prepared with resources and quickly clear and respond to incidents when they occur, and provide that traffic management, detour resources, or assistance when those events occur. So we've started that at noon on Thursdays and noon on Fridays, just because of the trends that we've been seeing. And I mentioned, we've been putting that traveler information out. On the Western Shore, we have 4 portable changeable message signs that are part of our deployment plan that I mentioned earlier in the meeting today, that are on the shore that are out to supplement messaging and information. On 2 of them, eastbound US 50 at 665, Maryland 2 southbound prior to College Parkway. We're encouraging motorists. There's also another one that is eastbound prior to Baydale, encouraging motorists to stay on US 50 traffic, to stay on US 50 and not the local roadways. We know that Google and Waze are taking traffic through the Broadneck communities, and we understand the challenges that is certainly giving the communities, and we empathize. And we also heard, and I've heard, and we'll work with Will and others on our signage to take a look and see what we can do as well from today's meeting. On the Eastern Shore, we have supplemented the Eastern Shore through Kent Island with 9 portable changeable message signs at various locations, all along exits 39 through 45, in addition to our 5 overhead dynamic message signs to encourage traffic to stay on US 50 and not use the local roads. And our overhead DMS signs, they put the travel time messaging out so motorists know the travel time for destinations. So again, our efforts are to work and coordinate proactively with the Transportation Authority for incidents when they occur on or around the surrounding areas of the bridge and the US 50 corridor on both sides. And we continue to proactively patrol and respond to emergencies when they occur. That's all I have for our ongoing efforts. We'll continue these and we'll continue adjusting. We continue working to look at data. Data drives our performance metrics and what we do for deployment of resources. And we're going to continue looking at what the data is telling us and what our information is telling us we should do with our resources. And if we need to adjust times, we need to adjust the tools that we deploy out there in our patrol units, and we need to adjust accordingly. We will, based on trends. So we're going to continue having those out through the summer and as we get into through the fall and continue having those assets out there ready to respond. So I'm available for any questions if anybody has any.
Anybody has any questions, you can raise your hands and call on you.
I don't have any questions, but I do have a comment. I want to thank you for including Thursdays, because I've seen a whole lot of traffic on 50 going east on Thursdays.
Yep, we have too, and we appreciate that. We collectively have worked together, and Will and I have coordinated on the trends that we've seen, and we recognize that as well, and we want to make sure that we have resources out there to respond adequately.
Thank you.
Jim Moran.
I have two questions, actually three questions. The first one's for Jim Harkness. I should ask him when he was up. Just want to know on the gantries, are you replacing all of the gantries, or do you know how many that you're going to be replacing?
Yes. So this is for westbound bridge. Okay. So we're replacing 17 gantries. And so that's all of the freestanding lane use control gantries on the bridge.
In that time frame is finished in the next year, or is it something that
we're still looking for the winter this winter?
Excellent, great, thank you. Yes. My next question is for Mr. Sagal. A couple things. First off, you talked about your resources and you talked about the message boards. I know on the Western Shore, because my office is in Crofton, and I come home, I go down 424 and I jump onto 50 and I come across a message board a couple miles down that says Bay Bridge and Rail Boulevard, how far they are and how much time till you get to the bridge. And I got to give you kudos, because every time that time comes up, it could be 28 minutes, 34 minutes, 56 minutes. It's within 2 to 3 minutes, because I stay on it and I want to see if it's accurate. So it's a great device. Thank you for that. But what I'd like to see that if we could get some of those installed on the Eastern Shore, especially before they get to the 5301 split and after they get, like for instance, to the 5301 split at Nesbitt Road. If somebody's knowing that they're backed up 10 miles, but it's only going to take them 34 minutes, hopefully they'll stay off the side streets. So and also give them a way to gauge, should I jump off or should I just sit here in traffic for an hour versus getting on these side streets. So that's my first one with that. And then the second one would be, and I don't know if you control this or not, for the baseband. It's a great tool. I tell everybody use it. I think it's extremely helpful. But could we add in that baseband recording to remind everybody to stay off the side streets and leave that for emergency services, fire and rescue, just to reinforce that same message that we're trying to do on both sides of the bridge to keep those side streets clear. So those are the two that I have for you.
Thank you, Mr. Moran. Noted for the Eastern Shore for travel times, and I appreciate the fact that you're keeping us honest.
Caffeine raises her anxiety level, so she still wants the flavor and pretend like
Member Moran,
she can drink coffee like a normal person.
Hey, excuse me, if you're not talking, can you mute your phones or mute your speakers, because we're getting a lot of side conversations. If you don't mind, if you're not talking, please mute your microphones.
There we go. Will, you want to take baseband, and then I'll
Sure.
take Sure.
Yeah. Thank you for bringing up baseband. We are currently in an upgrade. We procured the contract, are in the process of upgrading the IVR that runs baseband. And in that process, we have incorporated stay on US 50 language within the process. I personally reviewed the draft verbiage. We also put it right up front at the beginning of the message so that if you actually want to hear the traffic message, you have to listen through that. So we wanted to make sure that it is heard by everyone who calls into baseband. So I don't want to say we're one step ahead of you, but we got that one right.
Awesome.
Hey,
Will,
thank you for your feedback. Yep, thank you very much. We appreciate that and keeping us honest with our travel time reliability and the data, and heard you loud and clear for ensuring the same thing on the Eastern Shore.
Well, and also, and I think that I mentioned this to Jim Ports a year or so ago. You definitely need a bigger sign in contraflow to keep those tractor trailers out of contraflow, and because I've been on the bridge where I've passed tractor trailers in contraflow going eastbound on the westbound bridge, and I think that's extremely dangerous. So if there's anything we can do to place a larger sign, or at least two signs, so that they understand to move over and get to the right lane, so that they don't get stuck when you get up there where the road will divide, and all of a sudden they're in that left lane. I will say that I don't know if it was last week or I think it was the week before, Thursday and Friday, I came home in contraflow, and I was about 40 cars back from two rear end accidents. And your guys, I think I had to wait maybe a total of 40 minutes, but that's nothing compared to your team getting up there with the tow trucks and getting the mangled wreckage off the bridge. So I honestly feel that you're doing everything you humanly can. And I will say this July 4th weekend, just alone on Thursday with the thunderstorms, I think you started and stopped contraflow in the afternoon 4 times. And in the past, that's never happened. And to me, that's a huge effort on your part to try and get this traffic moving and through this bottleneck, and it is greatly appreciated. So I just wanted to put that out there.
So Jim Moran, this is Jim Ports. Thank you for that. We appreciate it because it's not just the crashed cars, it's also all the debris. But on the messaging, Will mentioned the baseband, but I also want to say that we have been really pushing out that message on social media and through our emails also. So if you subscribe to the service, you're going to get that message about staying on 50. And if you look at social media, we've been beefing it up a lot to stay on 50. So we're kind of attacking it from a lot of different directions. We will look at that signage for the trucks.
Yes,
obviously, we've had signage there for a long time. The inspection station, if you will, is on the right. Also, which is the reason they're supposed to stay on the right, because we don't know which ones we're going to pull over. But I will also contact our chief of police, Kevin Anderson, to have him watch that, because I agree with you. Those trucks should not be in that contraflow lane. And if we find a truck in that contraflow lane, we'll send a message that they should never be there again. How's that?
Awesome. That's very good. Thanks.
Sean, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I do. Thanks. And I just wanted to build a little bit on what Joey and Will said about the messaging, and then Jim hit pretty much everything I was going to bring up about the social media and the email and text alerts. The MDTA communications team over the last few weekends has done a fantastic job of getting that messaging out about the delays. And once it builds, you'll notice in the emails and the text messages that go out, the alerts, they quite clearly say, stay on 50, and they mention the keep the roadways open for the first responders and the residents. So they've done a fantastic job of building on that every week. So tip of the cap to them for that and everything that we're doing. And thanks for Joey, Jim, and Will hitting that and mentioning that earlier. So hopefully that'll keep people informed as we move forward. They're doing a great job.
Oh, I get the emails. It works perfectly if they got to subscribe to it and they need to get on board with it. We are leaps and bounds from where we were 18 months ago as far as with information. It's working and it is appreciated. So I guess the other concern I have is I know that these traffic counts are starting to get up there, and I don't know what's causing that. I don't where the extra vehicles are coming from, but you know, the public needs to understand that too. Sometimes when contraflow can't be opened because of the amount of traffic going, I think that's a tall task for you guys to justify, but good luck with that. I understand it, but you know, I think that, again, I think that this past weekend with the traffic, I mean, I know on Monday evening it backed up 11 or 12 miles, but we knew that was coming, but it dissipated very quickly. So, you know, again, kudos. I can't find any fault in anything y'all have done, so I guess everybody gets a gold star for that one.
Jim, this is important again. I want to thank you again for those comments. You and I spoke when I first came on board 2 years ago, and you had mentioned that communications was the key, and I told you then that I was going to focus on communications and communicating with the public and the elected officials. And I think, according to your comments, that's what you're seeing, and you're gonna continue to see that. And we have been focusing on that, just not with our communications team, but also our operations team. And we've pulled them together. And, you know, they're not normally together, operations and communications, but we've pulled them together, and they understand they need to work together as a team. And I think that's what you're seeing as a big part of this communication factor. We're getting the information quicker from operations, and we're dispensing it quicker through our communications team. So again, thanks for your comments. Appreciate it.
Jim, Jack here. I'd like to add my thanks to what Jim just said. Very apparent what you guys have done, and no question, the communication is getting better by the week. Thank you.
Yeah. And this is Sean again. I just wanted to build a little bit on what Jim said. You know, the communications and the operations team at MDTA, but also the MDTA and SHA teams. What you guys don't see is their constant communications going back and forth with, Joey mentioned the Eastern Shore travel notifications or travel statistics that we follow internally. They're constantly in communication with each other, and that's a testament to both teams. It's really one team, but they're sending information out so they know where the chart units are, and then MDTA is coming back with where what the traffic flows are and everything else. So there's a lot of things that happen behind the scenes that you guys don't see, that Jim and I probably see, every hour or less as the traffic volumes build and we start seeing the delay. So just so you guys know that they do work very well together, both teams.
Okay, have any other comments?
This is Colin Sweden from MDTA Communications. Just want to thank everybody for all the feedback, and even if there is anything that we're not doing that we could do, we'll stay tuned on these calls. But we're trying to also be more proactive in alerting people, and it gets picked up by First Alert as well. Alerting people when contraflow is going to be halted potentially due to weather. So possibly this Thursday, Friday. Last weekend we did it in the days leading up to the weekend, just to prepare people that, hey, if the weather's bad, don't expect two-way to be in. And then each of those alerts that we send throughout the weekend, we're also including the remaining best times to travel, as well as that stay on 50 message. So anything else we can put in there, let us know. I'm happy to incorporate that.
Okay, thank you.
Excuse me, I have a comment on the communications. A large number of people going.
You say your name? Is this Mr. Coates?
Sorry, Curtis Coates.
Okay, thank you.
A large number of people are coming eastbound. They stop at Wawa, along those XSX gas or whatever, something. Couldn't some kind of sign be put up in there that reminds us people to stay off the local roads or something too? Because Wawa gets, probably 80% of the traffic stops at Wawa before they cross the bridge. So if these people see this stuff, because I've been around here my whole life, 60-some years, and it's always been traffic, just totally been traffic. The more we can communicate, communication is key. It'll help.
Mr. Coates, I'll take those cones and move them up there.
Yeah, and so Cracker Barrel on Eastern Shore. That's another popular place.
Any comments from SHA on that? That's your jurisdiction.
There may be some possibilities. There may be some limitations with what we can post with side roads, but we can certainly look at what we can do with putting local traffic only. And going back to what we said with the beginning of the meeting when that came up, I know Pat had made comment about some of the things that she had found in past history about some of the restrictions and limitations, but I'll talk with our traffic section about some possibilities that may and may not be available to us.
But I think a lot of that was because they were ticketing people. That's when I think ACLU got involved. They were ticketing people going down there. That is a federal road. You cannot give somebody a ticket on the federal road because they pay federal taxes.
Yeah, there's definitely some challenges with that.
Okay, SHA will look into that for you, Mr. Coates. Pat, you had your hand up?
Yes, I just want to reiterate what I said. I'm working also with the Anne Arundel County Police on the convergence of traffic on East College Parkway for Sandy Point State Park. We have had excellent service from the Anne Arundel County Police from 2016 up until last year. We're having problems this year. I'm into it. I'm working with the police. I will apprise you as soon as I am able to give you good news. I will tell you, I have worked on this local traffic only for so many years with the police and SHA. And we are absolutely warned that they will lose federal funding if we try in any way to restrict the use of those local roads because they are state roads. They're not county roads, they're state. And the travelers have equal access to what is on East College Parkway as they do to what's on Route 50. So I can't stress that enough. It's very discouraging. 6 years worth of effort, and we're right where we were.
Tracy, this is Jim Ports. I just want to comment on what Pat just said about Sandy Point. So I was at the BPW meeting this morning, Board of Public Works. Jeannie Hadaway Riccio was also there. She's the secretary at DNR. And I spoke to her after the meeting, and I said that, we, the MDTA, along with SHA and DNR, need to partner together. And the suggestion I made to her today was that if they can determine when their park is going to be full and give us a heads up. So let's just say, for example, if they know, at about a half an hour, our park's going to be full, if they can alert us, then we can start putting that up on the overhead signs or on the other signs we may have on the sides of the roads saying, stay on 50, park closed, or ramp closed, park closed, as an example, to stop all that traffic from going back there, one, but then more importantly, coming back out. We're going to have a meeting with our operations group, their operations group, their police, our police, as well as our communications groups, to see how best we can facilitate that together. And hopefully that will help some, because if we can keep the people from going back there, then we can keep them from merging back on the 50 and messing everything up, and also staying out of the back roads. So we had the conversation today. More to come on that. We were swamped today. I haven't had a chance to talk to my operations group. I rely heavily on Jim Harkness. I hope I'm not catching him by surprise. But, there are certain restrictions, according to the FHWA, which is Federal Highways, about what you can and what you can't put on the signage, especially the overhead signs. That they're very restrictive in the information. But I believe that as long as it is traffic related or safety related that we can utilize those overhead signs. And maybe Jim Harkness can speak to that. Again, I'm hoping I'm not catching them off guard, but Jim, if you have any comments on that, and again, we'll keep you apprised of where we go with that.
Jim, this is Tracy. If you're going to a concert, you pre-buy tickets for the concert, and they only have so many seats in the concert. Why couldn't they do a pre-sale maybe or something on their busy days and only allow so many vehicles during certain hours or something? Maybe I'm not sure if that would help.
Yeah, I think they've tried. Yeah, I think they've tried to do different things with their tickets. And unfortunately, Tracy, what we're really seeing, and I've heard this from not just that park, but pretty much all the DNR parks, a lot of the local people are the ones that really utilize those parks now. It's actually shifted a bit after COVID. I guess everybody wants to get out, and people are enjoying, their own backyard, if you will. And so,
in Queen Anne's County, I don't think there's very many local people using our parks. I think they're all overflow from Sandy Point coming over, and found out we have parks on our side, and they're filling them up pretty good. But
less than 20% are local. Less than 20. We ask. We do surveys. Less than 20% are locals.
Is that a recent survey, Jim? Because like I said, they're seeing a real
weekends.
Uptick.
Just weekends. We get the overflow from Sandy Point.
Gotcha.
We get the overflow from Sandy Point.
So again, that's 20%. So, which is still a good number. But anyway, yeah, we can look into different things, Tracy. But we really need to stop people. If they believe it's going to be filled up in a half an hour and they close it, and they're going to close in a half hour, whether they're totally filled up or not, quite frankly, as long as they commit to that time frame, we can stop other people from going there in the first place. And I think that's a big key to some of the traffic problems. So anyway, we're going to work on it. Again, Jim Harkness, if you have something to add on that, or the utilization of the overhead signs, et cetera, that'd be great.
Jim. Yeah, I think hearing that and taking it into consideration, I think as you mentioned, it is a transportation safety issue. It's something that we can certainly take a look at. I think I've been jotting down my notes so far tonight, and I've heard a couple of things related to signing. So I think we're gonna get with ops and police and communications and talk about a holistic approach to our signs, both static and dynamic, and see what we can do to meet the varied needs that we have on both sides here.
Thanks, Jim and Jim, and hopefully something productive will come out of that, and it'll help to broaden that community, because I know it's a mess over there when that park gets full and you have to turn everybody around, and they're not sure where they're going at. So hopefully that'll help that. I think, Pat, you have your hand up again?
Yes, I can't think of any news that is better news than to know that Jim Ports is involved with DNR. We have worked with them for 6 years. They have flatly refused to do any work for us outside of the boundaries of Sandy Point State Park, and they do own the property that is the convergence of the East College Parkway with Oceanic Drive and the entrance into Sandy Point State Park. They can very well do what you're suggesting. They just have not wanted to cooperate. They said they would only handle police activity within their gates, but they collect tickets, so they know how many parking places are in use, and they know when they can stop the flow of traffic into the park. So you have got a lot of positive things in there, Jim, that you can access if you work with Jeannie in LA Review. I know Jeannie. She really has done nothing for us since she's been in her job, but she's a wonderful person, and I wish you good luck.
I can tell you this, Pat. I have an extremely good relationship with her.
Yay.
Obviously, we both served in the legislature together. I worked with her when she was in the legislature. I was in the Ehrlich administration as deputy secretary. We had a great relationship. We're both can-do attitudes, and she said she would be more than happy to work with me on this. So I feel like she is committed to working with me on this, and you know, we'll see what best results we can come out of it.
That's great news. Thank you, Jim.
Okay, it's been a long subject. Anybody have any more comments?
Jim Moran. No. Jim Moran, did you have your hand up? No.
I was just going to ask a question. I don't want to digress into how to handle the traffic and any of that kind of, you know, that's not the forte, but I do know on the Washington Beltway, I think it's either 26 or 29, one of those eliminated a ramp, just removed the whole ramp. It was unsafe. And I guess, and I'm just throwing that out there, the Sandy Point ramp eastbound causes a lot of stress on the merging and slowing down of the traffic. Why couldn't the state just remove that ramp, get rid of it? I mean, then you have on the message boards, you know, no access to the Bay Bridge, stops all that traffic from flowing through there. I just, you know, I know that there's other things you can do, an emergency inspection, emergency repair, whatever, but I just think that is the problem, one of the problems for the Eastern Shore, and where people are trying to get around all that traffic. Just my 2 cents, that's all.
Nick, do you have a comment?
Just wanted to follow up on Jim. I think he's referring to the exit for Route 214 that goes to Annapolis. When you come around from the north side of the Beltway going south, that 214 exit ramp is gone. That's all.
Okay, thanks. I'd just like to make a comment on the contraflow, just to explain how important contraflow is. About 3 weeks ago, we had rain on a Friday afternoon, if everybody remembers, and traffic backed up long distance past Annapolis. My son took him almost 5 hours to get home from DC area. And like Jim Moran was saying, how the bridge is manipulated the contraflow as much as they can with the weather, wind, and everything, and how much it's a dangerous option, but it's a definitely needed option to have that contraflow lane to get the traffic through this area. For anybody to come home from DC or wherever, they work across the bridge and take them 5 hours to get through there. And then on normal days when the bridge can open the contraflow lane, it's down to maybe an hour or so. It's how much of a difference it makes in that area, and just goes to show what's needed to handle the traffic coming through here, additional lanes and stuff. So I just like to throw that out there too. That is not the best option, but it's our only option to help alleviate traffic through the area. So and appreciate the bridge, everything you do for managing that the best that you can with the weather. So we'll move on to the next item on our agenda. There's an update on the recently held public hearings for the Bay Crossing study from project manager Heather Lell. Heather?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Doing good.
All right. Thank you. Thanks for having me. So I'm here to give the BRAG group an update on the Bay Crossing study and how the hearings went on the draft environmental impact statement. So beginning on February 23rd, the Bay Crossing study Tier 1 NEPA draft environmental impact statement, or DEIS, was made available for public review and comment through the Bay Crossing study website. The notice of availability was published in the Federal Register on March 5th of this year. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the facilities that would normally host the document for public viewing were initially closed, but after the document was released, facilities gradually opened and the DEIS was made available for public viewing at 13 locations throughout 5 counties in the study area. The public was able to view and comment on the document for a period of 84 days from February 23rd through May 17th. Comments were accepted in numerous ways, including via email, a comment form on the website, an old-fashioned letter, through live public testimony at one of the 6 public hearing testimony sessions.
And Jim, I'm so
in
glad.
April, and through private testimony during all testimony sessions. We received over 880 public comments during the comment period. The public comments included both support and opposition to the project and covered a range of topics, including general project support or opposition, process and schedule, corridor alternatives, traffic concerns, environmental impact concerns, and specific engineering questions, including pedestrian and bicycle access. You can view all public comments received throughout the life of the project, including those received during the comment period, on the project website, www.baycrossingstudy.com. The last formal step in the Tier 1 NEPA process, the combined final environmental impact statement and record of decision, is anticipated to be completed this coming winter, 2021-2022, probably early next year. The document will take into consideration all comments received through the public hearing comment period, summarize and respond to public and agency comments, and identify the selected 2-mile-wide corridor alternative. Keep in mind, though, that completion of the Tier 1 study does not presume the initiation of a Tier 2 NEPA study, since no funding has been identified at this point. So that's my update on the public hearing. Are there any comments or questions? Okay.
See no hands raised.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you,
Oh,
Heather.
is there a hand? You're welcome.
Okay. Our next agenda item is unfinished business. I am not aware of any unfinished business from the April meeting. If anyone has any, please bring it before the group now. Please raise your hand. Okay, the next item of business, I'll see hands raised, would be our first item of new business are some responses from MDTA to some of the community inquiries they received. I will now turn the floor over to Will Pines and Jim Harkness.
Okay, thanks, Tracy.
Thank you.
For the record, again, my name is Will Pines, and I'm the Chief Operating Officer for the Maryland Transportation Authority. And I'm going to kick things off. I guess, Melissa, will you be projecting the presentation? Okay, I'm going to kick things off, and then Jim Harkness will follow shortly thereafter to give some additional background. So as several had mentioned during this meeting, this summer has been really challenging with both weekday and weekend periods with simultaneous delays at the Bay Bridge. At the last meeting, we noted that there were some historical traffic analysis available to the public and the BRAG members, including the 2015 life cycle cost analysis, or what's referred to as the LCCA. We wanted to go over some of that to address some of the community concerns about traffic, and that we hope will provide some background on the recent traffic stats and perspectives related to those stats on what the BRAG members and the MDTA should expect in the future based on the prior studies that we've done. So you'll note on the screen that the life cycle cost analysis that was completed evaluated between Maryland 70 Rao Boulevard and US 50 301 split. Next slide, please. So as many of you are aware, there have been a number of studies completed over the years which have evaluated and forecasted the traffic at the Bay Bridges, including over multiple different administrations. The 2006 report projected a linear traffic growth, but it did not contemplate the temporary decline in traffic volumes that we observed during the recession period in the late 2000s. The 2015 LCCA report was based on 2013 traffic data and similarly projected linear growth, but that growth was with a more conservative growth rate and incorporated the recessional traffic impacts that we had experienced. The 2015 report projected daily volumes in the summertime of approximately 100,000 vehicles by 2020. And obviously with the pandemic, we had lower traffic volumes than that experienced in 2020. But as you'll see in the next few slides, the traffic information in 2021 is kind of right in line with what we expected and had predicted in 2021. So next slide, please. So just to give you some frame of reference on the slides, to start on this slide, I'll refer you to the legend in the lower right-hand corner. You'll note that the darker colored blues and green represent the westbound span, and the lighter colors, the eastbound span, and the lighter colors represent westbound. The eastbound bars are on the bottom, and the westbound bars are on the top. From left to right, the bars are for 2018, 2019, and 2021. And for clarity, we excluded the COVID-19 2020 year. The graphs are set from Tuesday through Monday, and that's just some legacy. The reason for that is just simply that MDTA has historically, for the last couple of years, tracked Tuesday to Monday because we had initially grouped the weekend together, Thursday through Monday, and then we backed in and added Tuesday and Wednesday. So it's just the product of how we've been tracking it. I appreciate Mr. Coates' comment earlier in today about traffic at the Bay Bridge for as long as he can remember being difficult. That said, we're seeing some really high volumes and in certain cases unprecedented volumes here in 2021. You can see that the 2021 actual volumes for the third week of June were frequently the highest that we had ever experienced for this week in prior years. Additionally, the total volumes were near that 100,000 vehicles mark that we had predicted in the life cycle cost analysis. Next slide, please. Similarly, in the fourth week of June, we experienced high volumes, and of particular note, you'll notice that the westbound Sunday volume, we experienced 56,000 vehicles on that Sunday, June 27th. This was nearly 11% higher than experienced in 2018 and 12% higher than experienced in 2019. So, you know, through various studies over the years, we've talked about different options for influencing the demand on the bridge, and even if you look at like the ferry study, for example, that talked about influencing upwards of 1% of traffic volume with significant number of ferries running concurrently. When we're having growth in you know, upwards of 11, 12%, it's a serious influence on the operation of the bridge. And the magnitude of the volumes on certain days are just frankly unprecedented. Next slide, please. So the next graphic from the LCCA report shows how delays are projected to increase in each direction over time. Focusing for a moment on the Sundays, which is shown in the lower right-hand corner, you'll note that the life cycle cost analysis predicted simultaneous eastbound and westbound delays starting in 2020. These simultaneous delays are projected to increase over time, such that by 2040, in the 1800 hour, it's projected to have over 7 miles back up eastbound, simultaneously with a nearly 10-mile backup westbound. We are hearing the community's frustrations with the simultaneous eastbound and westbound delays, with specific calls to alternate the two-way operation for whatever direction favors the delays experience. However, it's important to note for the BRAG and MDTA that we need your help in managing community and motorist expectations, as two-way operations will not adequately manage these simultaneous delays that we are experiencing and will increasingly experience over time. Significant delays during the summer in both directions concurrently will occur. And the traffic operational improvements that we've done and are doing, like the implementation of all electronic tolling and the automated lane closure system, will not address the congestion that is fundamentally caused by inadequate lane capacity on the bridge. There's just simply too many cars for the number of lanes. It's also important to note that the life cycle cost analysis did not include all electronic tolling and the Severn River enhancements where the bridge had an additional lane added. While that additional lane on the Severn River removed the bottleneck at that location, the removal of the bottleneck also eliminated the prior traffic metering eastbound that now is able to flow more directly to the Bay Bridge. Next slide, please. I already talked about the lengths of backups we're experiencing and expecting, but it's important to also note that these backups are based on average conditions in the life cycle report. They exclude incidents, inclement weather, construction operations, special events, and holidays. Furthermore, we're seeing the spreading of traffic both during the week and in the fall and spring periods. Next slide, please. Lastly, before I turn it over to Jim Harkness, the life cycle cost analysis projected that there would be major projects needed to keep the existing bridges in service, totaling nearly $3.25 billion. The existing bridges were originally designed for a 50-year life, with the eastbound bridge nearly 70 years old and the westbound bridge nearly 50 years old. Servicing the maintenance and traffic needs are becoming increasingly challenging as the bridges age beyond their original design intent. Given the age of the bridges and to keep them safe and open to traffic, we expect a near constant state of necessary construction. Additionally, the life cycle cost analysis notes that future projects on the existing bridges will likely necessitate partial bridge closures, including during peak periods, and potential long-term lane closures. With community objections to even minor lane reductions and the current shoulder closures, the practical feasibility of more extensive rehabilitation and maintenance projects necessary to extend the bridge life is very uncertain. It will become increasingly important for the members of the BRAG to help share with the community the realities of the lane capacity inadequacies as normal and work zone traffic concerns apply an increasing demand on the management of the bridge. And so I'm going to turn it over in a moment to Jim to talk about some of the experiences that we've been having during the weekdays, but I'm happy to take any questions on the slides that I presented so far.
Pat, you have your hand up. Pat, you had your hand up?
Oh, yeah, I thought you called Jim. Yes, I've read your report several times within the last 2 days. There's one objection that I have, and that is that you keep saying it is the communities, I've forgotten the words, but the communities object to these long lines of traffic. It's not the communities, it's every traveler, whether you're an elected official, whether you are MDTA trying to get to their job at the Big Bridge. It's everybody who is stuck in this traffic that is just getting worse. So the word communities, it kind of puts the onus on a organization such as the Broadneck Council or any of the local organizations that are all complaining about the traffic. And yet it's not just communities, it's everybody.
Yeah, I apologize if I underemphasized the importance of motorist complaints. I mean, we hear frustrations across the board from every stakeholder that's impacted by the Bay Bridge. It's obviously an economic engine for our state to reach the beaches and to also reach some of the economic opportunities on the Western Shore. And we obviously are doing everything we can to help manage all of the stakeholders that we interact with that utilize the Bay Bridge and try to give the best service we can, given the difficult challenges that we're facing.
Well, this is Tracy again. This sort of backs up my feelings and what I've been saying. Instead of this whole study being a study for additional bay crossing, I still don't understand why we couldn't go with the, I guess how you define it would be as a replacement bridge project. Here in your information, it perfectly states that these bridges are getting beyond their life expectancy and capacity and need to be replaced. It's just, I think it'll get less comments from the public, it'll be less headache for you all if you're trying to explain that we're trying to replace antiquated bridges that are going to cost enough money in the future that would pay for a bridge almost, I would think.
So in terms of the replacement consideration of the existing bridges, obviously we're following a NEPA process. There's a tier 1 process and a tier 2 process. Heather provided the updates that of what's happened to date related to the tier 1. The tier 2 contemplates more specific evaluations, like where the specific alignments could be, how dynamic tolling could be leveraged, whether it would be a replacement structure or an all new structure. Those types of questions are intended to be addressed in the tier 2 study. The tier 1 study fundamentally needed to decide financial feasibility and the location for the crossing.
Thank you.
Tracy, Jim Ports, I want to add a little bit more into what Will said. You really have to keep in mind that first of all, you never heard of a third crossing from anybody from MDTA. That was County Executive Pittman made that statement. That statement has been repeated and repeated and repeated by the press. You've never heard that from MDTA. We are basically prohibited from kind of projecting, a vision before the study's done, if you will. Okay, does that make sense? In other words, we end up being the decision makers, and so the federal government doesn't allow us to predispose a study. Now, that being said, I will have you look at the Nice Bridge project. And that's all I'm going to say about that.
I'm with you.
Okay, Tracy, I mean, people have been banging on us about this third crossing. They've never heard me say anything about a third crossing. It's never happened. Those words have never come out of my mouth.
That considered fake news.
But again, I can't predispose a study. So I, as the head of an agency, cannot talk about whether it's going to be one bridge, a very large bridge, 2 bridges, or 3 bridges. I cannot talk about that. And so you just have to understand. And again, I'm going to point to the Nice Bridge, look it up, see what's happening down there, and maybe people will get a better idea of how this may work.
With that being said, I guess.
Jim, can Pat mute her computer?
So with that being said, Jim, I hear what you're saying, and Will, this is an outstanding report. And what I'd like to know is could we get a report that shows, hypothetically, if there was a 4-lane bridge, 4 lanes east, 4 lanes west bridge, what capacity does Route 50 have through the corridor for how much traffic it can handle? There's no sense, we know right now that the bridge is the bottleneck and the road can handle the traffic. But how far can we go if we were to add lanes on both sides of the bridge and show some sort of, hypothetically speaking, I get it. We need the DES done, and we need that done before we move forward with anything. And that's why I've always been saying, push this thing, so we can get to that point. So I'd like to have a copy of this. I hope that everybody gets a copy of your report there, because that is eye-opening. And I will say, since I've lived on the Eastern Shore, those bridges have been under constant construction anyways. So I don't know how you intend to do anything going past, 2025, 2030 with the amount of traffic we're going to have. I don't know how you're going to be able to work on a bridge. If you intend to close them to do the work, that's a death sentence for somebody. So, I get it. And that's why, the more we push, the faster things move, the better we'll be.
So this presentation will be made part of the materials available publicly on the BRAG site. Additionally, the life cycle cost analysis report, the full report, is available from the MDTA website. If you just Google Bay Bridge life cycle analysis, it's available for download. The life cycle analysis report does include potential scenarios for replacement structures, kind of the options of what Tracy was getting to. But certainly the life cycle analysis does not meet the same standard of decision that a record of decision from a NEPA process would. And so this is just sort of our first stab, if you will, or I guess multiple stabs if you count the prior task force in 2006 and the prior studies. But this was an updated study to kind of contemplate what different cost scenarios would be for different bridge configurations. All of that information is in the report. And I did not include that in the presentation here very intentionally because of the ongoing NEPA Tier 1. That has updated cost numbers. It has updated traffic information that's available publicly. We, as Jim noted, do not want to skew opinions on any of the studies and bias things in any way. So, the levels of service on the different design or build alternatives are provided. But that kind of information is also in the life cycle cost analysis and has different lane configurations for different proposed bridge scenarios.
Hey, Will, can you also, because Jim Moran asked a more specific question too, and that's related to the entrance to the bridges, the exits to the bridges. So really, he's talking about the infrastructure beyond the bridges. Can you just address that for a second? Because I think a lot of people think it's just about a bridge being built. It is not. It is also looking at an expansion of a highway system. So, Will, can you just touch on that, please?
Sure. Yeah. So the life cycle cost analysis, as I mentioned, the study corridor was from Maryland 70 Route Boulevard all the way to the 301-50 split. So it doesn't, the cost analysis did include anticipated cost at that time in like 2014 dollars for the highway improvements that would coincide to make the bridge and the highway functional together. So if you're going to build a 4-lane bridge, you're going to have a 4-lane highway that coincides with it. Similarly, the NEPA study, Heather could possibly speak more to this, also includes highway improvements for the different corridor alternatives. I don't want to get into too much of the details on that, but it's certainly contemplated under, as far as I know, every study we've ever done that went with a new bridge would be appropriate highway improvements in order to make the system functional and provide an appropriate level of service.
Okay, we have lots of hands up. So, Melissa, can you see who's first?
This is Heather. Can I jump in and just to support Will? He's absolutely right. And that Tier 2 study, the potential future Tier 2 study, is where we will look at the improvements that would be necessary for various alignment options within the 2-mile wide corridor selected during Tier 1.
Okay, thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
Melissa, can you call the next?
Yeah, you want to go ahead, Todd?
Yes, this is Steve. Yeah, this is Steve Wilson, actually. I wanted to add my compliments. I haven't broken in so far because everybody else was so laudatory about your efforts. I didn't want to overcome you. But my general feeling is you guys operationally and communication-wise it's been really commendable the last couple of years. Very, very good upswing. Particularly, I'd like to remark today on the last set of graphs and tables by Will and Jim Port. I'm quite interested in how you model future growth, because to me, this has always been very responsive to the economic cycle. All kinds of other variables enter in, everything from tolls, but particularly gasoline prices, and everything under the sun gets in this. But one of the things that's interested me, and I wonder if you have any way to quantify this, is how when backups get very big, they become self-limiting simply because they're so dysphoric to be in that people no longer do them. People stop commuting to the ocean or stop taking jobs on the Western Shore. How do you factor that into your future calcs?
So I think I'll really quickly touch on this, and then I think I'm going to turn it over to Jim Harkness, who is clearly more of a traffic SME than I am. But at a high level, the life cycle cost analysis that I presented on here looked at a lot of historic traffic information, compared various forecasts, looked at prior studies, and came up with projections based on some comparison of those and what was considered reasonable. The NEPA study is required to follow certain projections based on land use that are necessary to comply with the federal requirements. So that's kind of driven by models that are developed for the region. And before I get myself in too much trouble trying to expand on that, I will turn it over to Jim Harkness and let him add to it, if you don't mind, Jim.
Sure thing, Will. I'll try to answer the question as succinctly as I can, but essentially the life cycle cost analysis used historic growth coupled with a look at the time, the model that was called the integrated Bay-Nice traffic trip generation model, and it did the best it could to look at future growth for the purpose of that study. And as Will said, the current Bay Crossing study utilized a statewide accepted model, and that's a requirement under the federal NEPA process.
Heather, explain how at the projections of growth as far as population and all that stuff.
Absolutely right. During the traffic forecasting for a NEPA study, we coordinate with the local metropolitan planning organizations in order to use the model that they've developed for future forecasts. Now, the model they develop is developed sort of in concert with their member counties. And the counties give their projected employment and population numbers to the MPOs, who then, and they coordinate on that. It's not just handed over. They meet and they talk about how that's going to be built into the model. So at the base of the model that we use are the projections from the actual counties, the future population and employment numbers. So we're not making this up. We have to use those approved forecasts in our model to then make our traffic projections based on our study.
So what I'm going to say about that, Tracy, and this Jim Ports again, is that when certain elected officials say that our forecasts are way off, we actually get the information from the local governments. So if they feel like our numbers are way off, they should probably check with their own employees and in their own studies in their county council, for example, because that's exactly where we're getting the information from.
I agree with you. Sometimes it hurts feelings when they find out things for the truth. It doesn't make news. So we want to hear the truth. You all give us the truth, and that's what we're going to go with. Jim, Will, Joe, and yourself, and all. And you throw it out there as information, and we really appreciate you doing that. If we like it or not, it is what it is. So that's what we want to hear. So the next person that has their hand up is Pat again. Pat.
Yeah, I have confidence in the numbers, the traffic numbers from MDTA. Just a comment as a tag on to Jim's comment. I don't have confidence in the numbers coming from county government. I did not know that. I was absolutely locked on to the numbers that Jim Ports was projecting as far as traffic increases based on what we've seen this past season, June through, well, July. It's been horrendous here in the Broadneck Peninsula.
Okay.
That's all I want to say right now.
Okay, that's the last hand up. Steve Wilson got yours up still. Do you have anything? Commissioner Wilson? You're still muted, Commissioner Wilson, if you have something. Okay. Commissioner Wilson, you're muted, but your hand's up. All good? Just want to make sure I didn't miss something. Thank you. All right. Pat, do you have something else? We're going to move on to the next item.
Yeah, I want to mention one more thing, and that is we in the communities that are near the Chesapeake Bay have been focused on an NEPA solution that would probably take a traffic surge away from the south central part of Anne Arundel County and move it to the south or the north, like Cambridge. We're hoping for another bay crossing in either direction. However, when we looked at the actual mandate, and when I saw Jim's report that these bridges that are currently in operation had a lifespan of 50 years, and we realized how far over capacity these are now and how they're the 52 model is almost 20 years beyond capacity. All of a sudden, it was a totally different, for many of us, focus, in that we now have a mandatory requirement to look at a replacement bridge. And I think Jim Moran brought this up at a recent public radio broadcast, that we have to replace this bridge. The question is, when do we have to replace it? That has, to many of us, all overcome our consideration for a north or south crossing to take traffic away from where we are living with these mounds of traffic coming every single weekend and now during the week, as MDTA has correctly forecasted. So right now our focus is on the replacement bridge. And if we have a replacement bridge, then guess what? Our horror of having 3 Bay Bridge spans is a reality, because you can't demolish the 52 model while you're building the new model. You have to have 3 spans up while you're building the new model. And then eventually we're hoping that we have a net of 2 models, because we've got 1 span, the 52 model, that should be demolished when the new replacement bridge is built.
This is all stuff that'll come out in the study, so we'll get on with that. And that's a whole bunch of stuff that'll come out with Heather's future studies, hopefully, and that'll be addressed then.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Next agenda item concerns the 511 response times and operation of traffic cameras at the Bay Bridge.
Hold on a minute, Tracy. I think Jim still has a few slides to present.
Sure.
Yeah, sorry, Tracy. Just
sorry about that, Jim.
No problem. We just wanted to expand a little bit upon what Will was talking about and what others have mentioned in terms of the traffic volumes that we've seen so far this season. And so what I did was compile some of the data that we've had to take a look, an in-depth look at our Wednesdays in June so far this year. And so hopefully the next couple slides you recognize from prior presentations, but essentially what I did on this chart here was to graph the eastbound and westbound volumes. And again, I took the 5 Wednesdays in June and averaged them together for each hour of the day, starting from midnight on the left through, again, midnight on the right. So the very light color line is our westbound volumes. So that has the black dots. And then the darker color orangish line, that is our eastbound volumes. I also have the 2 sort of reddish bars across indicating the approximate capacities at 2 lanes and then again with 3 lanes. So a couple of things that I wanted to call to your attention is that for our westbound, again, the lighter color line, we have a sort of that traditional morning peak demand. However, it is still a reduced peak, as a result of COVID. So we're looking at 700, 800 vehicles an hour less there for that peak. And so it is still a peak. It still exceeds 2-lane capacity, but it's not nearing the 3-lane capacity. And then I guess sticking with the morning, you see eastbound on the Wednesdays is creeping up, approaching that 2-lane capacity through that morning peak period, but not quite reaching that period or that capacity. Then as we sort of get past that morning peak, the demand, the volumes on westbound dip while eastbound continues to rise. So normally we have the operations team is watching these volumes, and they'll make the call at some point in the day to switch to switch into 2-way, and that is, as you can see, necessary to meet the demands for eastbound, especially as we get into that PM peak. And unfortunately, what you can't really see here is the westbound. The volumes are underneath that red bar, the 2-lane capacity bar, and they're sort of plateaued there for about 5 hours. So that's kind of indicating to me that the demand for westbound is right at that capacity, exceeding it slightly for some of those Wednesdays. But essentially, that demand is higher than we've experienced in years past, a couple hundred vehicles an hour higher than we've experienced in years past. And whereas the eastbound PM peak is about the same as in years past. So we're seeing this past June PM demand in eastbound direction equal to what we've seen in years past. And then as you continue to move into the evening hours, the demand, both volumes dip below that 2-lane capacity, and any kind of residual queuing will clear. So with the next slide, I just sort of walk through some of those time periods. Again, this is average Wednesdays. So the first 2 Wednesdays of this June were sort of pretty close, maybe slightly less than years past in terms of the volumes in either direction. But certainly the last 3 Wednesdays, as Will showed in his graphics, we saw volumes that equaled or exceeded years past. So that when we combine them all together, the impacts don't show up quite as well, but they are still notable. So, in the 9 a.m. time slot, sorry, go back one slide. So in this 9 a.m., the first screen capture there, you can see, as I mentioned earlier, westbound, we are able to meet that demand with the 3 lanes that we provide. And then eastbound shows a little bit of slowing, but that's on the bridge itself. with that upgrade and our curve that we have there. So then as we move into the bottom side of this portion of this slide, the 11 o'clock, no, please go, yeah, right there. That is where we had some, we were trying to get some of our construction activities, it involved lane closures. So there's some impacts that showed up here, particularly eastbound, that, from putting a single lane closure in these morning hours did result in 2 miles or so of reduced speeds and queues. So then we move into the next slide, move into the next slide, and in this 3 p.m. hour, we were approaching. We've removed the lane closure, no work going on. We're just into the traffic operations, traffic management here. So we have 3-lane capacity heading eastbound, and westbound we have those just the 2 lanes to service that. Again, we see some slowing on both approaches because as shown in the original first chart, both eastbound and westbound in this evening, early afternoon, we're approaching our capacity. So the demand from both directions were right at or exceeding the limit of our capacity. So that you see that represented here by this the colors of these the slowing reduced speeds. And then as we move to the bottom again, by that 5 o'clock hour, volumes have decreased. We're below the 2-lane capacity thresholds, and so queues are all but gone except for on the bridge itself. So we just wanted to sort of depict for you visually what we've been noticing in our data, and I think essentially we've been reactive to the management on this. So as I said, the first 2 Wednesdays, the volumes were sort of lower than in prior years, and we didn't go into 2-way operations until the afternoon. But then with that starting on the 16th and moving to the last 3 Wednesdays of the month, the demand just came on a lot earlier than normal, and we saw higher volumes for the whole day, and the operations team reacted accordingly and put in 2-way operations as early as 9:30 in the morning, and I think 9:30, 9:45, and then 10:45, respectively, for the last 3 Wednesdays in June. So they were responsive to that demand and made changes accordingly. And that's all I had on the traffic volume presentation.
Thank you, Jim.
If I could add just one point to just kind of dovetailing back to my presentation a little bit and the difficulties with performing construction operations. Historically, it's been a non-issue for MDTA to do off-peak hours, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., a daytime lane closure on a Wednesday in the summer. This year, anytime we've tried to do it, we're being forced to pick up. And it's a big challenge for us because, as Jim talked about earlier, right now we're installing new gantries on the westbound bridge that go across the entire roadway. We have barrier replacements where the entire railing is open in the middle of the night. So you just cannot have vehicles on the westbound bridge at night. So we're running 2-way all night long. Really cannot do a closure on the eastbound bridge at night to do the work. And so you're really only left with daytime periods to do work on eastbound. And we can't even sneak in a daytime period during off-peak on a Wednesday. It's getting really, really difficult for us, and just want to make sure that the BRAG members understand that.
Okay, thanks, Will and Jim. A lot of information there. Okay, So we're going to go into our next agenda item, was concerns with the 511 response times and operation of traffic cameras at the Bay Bridge. Melissa, you know who's supposed to take over that?
So, Tracy, in relation to the 511, I'm going to cover that topic briefly and just note that the 511 service is directly tied into the chart system. So when we put out updates through chart, it's automatically updated within the 511 system. So, you know, something that may be useful to the members, the baseband system is separate from 511. They have a different updating process. And so we do have to manage those systems concurrently. And as Jim Ports had mentioned earlier, that also coincides with the updates that we're doing through Facebook and Twitter and through the Gov delivery system. So there's multiple venues that we have to keep current. Sometimes in the process, there could be a 30-second lag between when the baseband update goes through and when the 511 catches up, because the staff that are in our authority operations center that enter in the information, they do have to do one system at a time, and they are separate systems. So we're not exactly sure what the issue was with 511, but Jim Harkness mentioned the cameras, the gantry upgrade during his presentation, and he has one slide to kind of show you some details there.
Okay.
Well, I also wanted to mention, another way to get updates is just to go to the main MDTA webpage under the Stay Informed pop-up, and you can select the facility Bay Bridge. It's not real time, but whatever announcements that are going out through our communications division will come through if you subscribe to that as well.
Okay. Thank you. I just wanted to touch base on and expand a little bit upon the project that is replacing the gantries and also therefore the cameras on the westbound bridge. So earlier during my report out, Commissioner Moran asked about how many gantries. So here is where I'm talking about a little more detail. So we are, as I said, replacing 17 gantries on the westbound bridge, and that is a part of BB 2819, which was the westbound lane 1 overlay and rehabilitation. So this is part of the rehabilitation. So this part of the work, this scope of work was necessitated because of condition findings showing defects on these steel structures. And also part of it was that the LED signals that are on these lane use controls were at the end of their expected life cycle. So we used this project as the opportunity to go ahead and replace those. Half or nearly half of the gantries that we're replacing, of the 17 gantries, they were original from 1975, and then the remaining were from a separate project that installed additional gantries in 1987. The conditions of these gantries ranged from fair to good. So it was time to do that, especially considering the upcoming eastbound project, which will be taking a lot of time and replacing the gantries on that bridge. So a little bit of the details on the replacements. We're utilizing a new circular monotube design. That's the in these pictures, it's the picture on the left there. So it is slightly different in appearance, but it's also structurally just a little different. The existings were a square truss style gantry. And so part of this work involves replacing all the attachments on these gantries in addition to the structure itself. So we have, obviously I mentioned the lane use control signals. That's for the green arrows, red X's. But we also have, as you can see in the photos, static signs attached to those. Some of those signs also contain the flashing beacons for congestion warning. We also have the driver feedback speed display signs. And then, of course, we also have our CCTV cameras attached to these gantries. So when these gantries are taken out of service, we will be obviously losing the ability to display the lane use control signals, but also we'll be losing the CCTV coverage in that area until we can reinstall the new gantry and the new cameras on those gantries. So if there's any questions, I can try to answer those now.
Seeing no questions, we'll move on to the next item. There's a tolling recommendation from Vice Chairman Hitchens concerns their inquiries received from one of our community members. Barbara, you want to make a comment on that?
Yes, we've had tolling on one of our previous agendas, and when I received an email from one of the people in my contact groups, it was brought up that since the Delaware bypass has opened, that a lot of people are using it because their cost is so much lower than 95. So they're coming down 301 or going up 301. It's $4 to use the bypass, and on the bridge $250. And so versus $10 and something coming by way of 95. And so perhaps it's something that this group needs to revisit to see whether or not we can make any recommendations. And some of the recommendations that were suggested was to pay toll both ways on the bridge, to increase the toll fare. And I know Governor Hogan reduced it. I don't know if this is something that could be recommended or, could be brought into consideration. And then to also talk about variable tolling during the summer months. And I don't know whether it is worthwhile for this group to make a recommendation that the Bay Bridge tolls be studied and to see if changes should be made to perhaps help with traffic flow control. And I'd like to hear your opinions or how you feel about it, or if you think it's worthwhile for us to pursue.
Will, do you know, or Jim, if there was a study done when the governor decided to reduce the tolls, or the latest study has been done?
I'm not sure about a study, Trace. Oh, go ahead, Will. Go ahead.
I was just going to comment that the use of the term study means a lot of different things, and we hear oftentimes frustration that MDTA does a whole lot of studies. The reality is that we've done some preliminary cursory looks at some of these issues, but the Tier 2 NEPA study would do the real investigation that would help us to really fully understand dynamic tolling as an option to manage congestion. We've talked about that at a few meetings now. In terms of implementing two-way tolling, we have looked at that as part of the AAT project. We briefly kind of considered doing two-way tolling. From MDTA's perspective, absent modifying the toll rates, that really doesn't accomplish anything, and it actually creates some problems. Number one, for our customers, it's likely that the location of a gantry for two-way tolling would be in two separate counties. So if you're a motorist going to the beach for the weekend and you travel on the facility, you get a video toll transaction in both directions, and you choose not to pay, you could end up in court in two separate counties from one trip. So there's some inconveniences that come with two-way tolling that, absent the consideration of changing the toll rates, it's just really not an effective tool from a customer perspective. And additionally, it does add costs to MDTA because our costs in processing tolling transactions is based on the number of transactions. So when you have a video transaction in two directions, it would increase our costs to collect the tolls. So again, absent some consideration for dynamic tolling and the things that would be evaluated during the tier 2, it's not something that we're really considering at this time.
Okay. What about, do you have any feelings on an increase in toll, raising it from 250, to a higher rate? Could anything be done about that? Any recommendations made?
Well, certainly something could be done about it. That's a public hearing process. I don't believe that the initiative is going to come from this administration. However, as you know, since it is a public process, it may be better in this case to start with the local governments and see what the appetite is from the Anne Arundel County government and the elected officials and the public at large in that area, as well as the Queen Anne's folks, elected officials and public at large. That's really where the initiative would probably have to start for this governor to even look at it.
And with the new administration coming in 2 years, the whole thing could change again, I'm sure.
It could. However, the local input, the public hearings is still the same process no matter what administration comes in. So several governors over several administrations have always treated the Bay Bridge and the localities, I guess the local governments in that area or local citizens in that area, a little differently than some of the other areas. If you look at the toll rates in other areas, you'll see that they're higher than the Bay Bridge in many cases. So there hasn't seemed to be an appetite for raising them. As far as dynamic tolling goes, that would absolutely impact the local citizens as well as the other traveling public. And look at the 495, the P3 project, and you can see local input. Now that project is actually supported by about 70% of the population, the traveling population, because the traffic is the worst congested or the second worst congested in the entire nation. And so they're begging for, at least the traveling public is begging for a solution to that stifling congestion. And that's every day, 365 days of the year. And so you can get an idea of how, some toll rates may work on a dynamic situation by looking at that as a reference. But your situation is going to be a little different, because in the P3 situation, there are other routes to go. And when you're looking at dynamic pricing and dynamic or traffic management solutions, they're normally accompanied with people having other options to take different routes if they do not want to pay the tolls. In the Bay Bridge situation, there's really not a lot of options. I mean, you can go up around the north, obviously through Delaware, not an option for most people living close to the bridge. Absolutely not an option. So you have to take those things into consideration. But dynamic tolling, and the only reason that we would put tolls on both sides would be in a dynamic tolling situation.
And does anyone else have an opinion from, their side of the bridge as to how they feel about tolling? I'd like to get an answer back to the person who contacted me and let me know whether there was any interest in this or not, or just say, it's a dead issue at this point.
Nick Diotis has a comment.
Exactly, just a comment. I don't think tolling is going to solve our problem. We need new bridges, and tolling and new bridges are so far apart. It's not going to solve the problem.
Okay, anybody else?
Okay. Well, thank you, and I'll try to contact them and let them know, the discussion that took place, so it'll make it clear to them what can happen with their suggestions. That's it from me, Tracy.
Thank you. Next we have is a member Diotis had some concerns about head-on incidents on the bridge.
Thank you, Tracy. Lately, when I'm out and about in the community, people ask me, what's going on with the bridge? And I say, what do you mean what's going on with the bridge? Traffic as usual. No. What's going on with all the head-on collisions? So there's a perception that we're having a lot of head-on collisions this year. And I know we've had several, and maybe we've had several rear-end collisions. And I got to ask, is there studies being done? Is anyone monitoring the data? Where are these collisions on that westbound bridge? Where do most of them occur? Do they occur at the peak? Do they occur on the way up? Do they occur on the way down? Or are they just sporadically everywhere? And then, of course, the head-on collisions are the most serious and usually, result in fatality because of the injuries sustained in a head-on collision. And then I have questions like, I have thoughts like, why can't we have signs that say no cell phone use on the Bay Bridge? Turn it off, block it, jam the signal so they can't use it. The people are texting, the people are emailing, the people, they're taking pictures, and that you might not be able to stop, but maybe you could just have 911 calls only on the Bay Bridge. And then when you get off of it, you get your service back. I mean, half the time I go up the Bay Bridge, I lose service anyway. So I'm just wondering if any of these things are given thoughts, if there's anything can be done, because we have to have contraflow. You can't stop it. And I know that, and you guys all know that. So, how can we make it safer? This past weekend, I was in Cape Cod. I was on the Bourne Bridge and Sangamore Bridge. Very similar, the big tall bridges way up high. You go over, can we put some kind of shielding up there where you can't see over the bridge? Maybe not the whole bridge, maybe just a portion of it where these accidents occur. I mean, these are all thoughts. I don't know if anybody thinks of these things. I'm sure you do. But that's what's been on my mind the last month. And I got news for you. Our citizens, they're getting scared of driving contraflow now because of what's going on. So I'd like to hear some comments back. Thank you so much.
So I think I can address that, and thank you for your question. This Jim Ports, we do track that. As a matter of fact, I can tell you that in 2016 we had a total of 16 crashes. 14 of those were rear ends. One was a head-on, and one was an other. So more than likely a side swipe. In 2017, we had 18 total crashes. 14 of those were rear end crashes. One of those was a head-on, and 3 were other. In 2018, we had 21 crashes, 19 rear end crashes, 1 head-on crash, and 1 other. In 2019, we had 17 crashes, 12 rear end crashes, 2 head-on crashes, and 3 other. In 2020, was a record year, apparently. There were 29 crashes. There were 24 rear-end crashes, 2 head-on crashes, and 3 other. And in 2021, which is obviously this year, half a year, we've had 7 total crashes, 5 rear-end, 2 head-on. So I know that when the head-ons occur, that it doesn't take many to think that there's a lot, but as you can see, it was 111, 222. So a total of 9 or 8% are the head-ons, 88% are rear end crashes, and 11% are other. And it was a total of 108 crashes. So one of the things that we did, as you know, is we removed the toll booths. Many of those crashes, those rear end crashes, were at the toll booths. So we're seeing a drop since we've taken those out. Obviously, there's none at the toll booths because you're free flowing. But quite frankly, the behavioral aspects, and I'm on the highway safety team, and as you may know, I was also deputy administrator in NHTSA, National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, in USDOT. So we focus on this a lot, and we have made several campaigns on be a sober driver, make a plan, slow down, drive at the correct distance from people. Phone use is illegal, and unfortunately, I have a pickup truck. I can look over and I see people on their phone every single day, all the time. And it's literally, you're right, it's literally out of control. But those behavioral problems are the toughest ones, because it's just like speeding. We have speed limits too, and those signs are everywhere. But people still speed like crazy. So we do our best to campaign against it. We do our best to keep it safe. That's why one of the reasons we don't allow two-way during fog or bad weather, rain, for example, because it obviously would increase the amount of head-on collisions. And some of those collisions, by the way, some of those collisions, the head-ons I'm talking about, were actually going to be rear-end collisions until they swerved, and when they swerved, they went into the other lane. So it wasn't always distracted driving, but there was a significant amount of reasons why some of these crashes occurred. So I hope that helps answer that question for you.
The information is extremely helpful, especially to hear that there's so few head-on collisions. And
correct.
Certainly I will let the community and friends and people know that that's the case. I know
Sure.
It's not something you want to publicize. You don't put it in the newspaper. We only had 2 head-ons this year, but it's helpful to get some of that information from time to time, so we can, I can tell somebody, no, you're wrong. That's not the case. This is
Sure.
what's going on up there. But yeah, I mean, the telephone has definitely changed the whole thing, and as long as they have them, as long as they're texting, I think texting is probably your biggest problem. But if there was some way you could just put a sign up there and kill texting, there'll be no texting on Bay Bridge, and just kill it, jam it. Then that would be interesting to see. But nevertheless, the head-ons seem to take the most. Tracy and his crews take the most time to clear them up, to get the people off of there, to get the damage off of there, to do the investigation. Probably have the worst injuries in those, and it's just a shame that happens. But I thank you again for the information, and I'll be sure to spread it around.
We agree, and I do want to make one comment about the cameras too. I know Jim Harkness gave you some information on the gantries, and obviously when we're taking a gantry down, the cameras come down with it. They can't hang a camera in thin air, right? So, but there's another reason we take down the cameras, and that's during a crash situation, especially if there's an entrapment or a head-on. And you can imagine that the reason we do that, I'm sure Tracy's very well aware of this. The reason we do that is because we don't want that information being cast across the news or in the public domain, showing people, vehicles, and people and the damage to potential loved ones before they have heard anything from the police. And so you can imagine we take those cameras down pretty quickly. So we get criticized a lot of times for taking the cameras down for crashes, but that's the reason we do it. It's for the human side and to protect the families that may have some loved ones.
Jim,
Okay,
numerous times I hear of an incident, whatever, somebody calls the house, calls my cell phone, what happened on the bridge? Oh, I don't know, let me check it out. You go online, you want to see what's going on, and you can't see it. And guess what? It gets annoying. But in this litigious society we're in, there's no way in the world you can televise or show what's on that camera, because you don't know how it can possibly be used against you or even in your favor. But most likely somebody's out to use it against you, and it's it just shouldn't be there. Let the public doesn't need to see that, as far as I'm concerned. And if someone needs to see it, let them subpoena it and get it to the courts.
We agree.
Okay, Jim Harkness got a comment and his hand up. Jim?
Yeah, thanks, Tracy. I just wanted to sort of tack on to what Jim Ports talked about. It related to the crash numbers and for Nick, just he was, the numbers that we presented were the entire bridge. So both the North Bridge and the South Bridge, eastbound and westbound directions. So when you consider the crashes that occurred at night, it's approximately 50% of those head-ons, and then the ones that occurred on the North Bridge, so the westbound bridge, were again about half of those.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Anything else?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Nick. Okay, we're gonna go ahead to public comments. So before I get into this, public comment is for people that are not on the BRAG committee. The meeting is pretty much for BRAG members to discuss items on the agenda. So if anyone from the public that is not a BRAG member, please take plenty of notes during the meeting. And when we get to public comments is when we will call on you. You can raise your hand to address any questions, concerns that you have. So the meeting tonight's gotten pretty long. It's been 2 hours and 40 minutes. It's really good information, but a long day for everybody. It's been at work all day and have to sit through this all night. So just anybody that's from the public that has any questions or concerns, please take notes for yourself during the meeting. And when we call for public comments is when we'll address those. So now we are at public comments. We'll open the floor to any members of the public. So if they have any comments, please raise your hand. Not seeing any hands raised, we'll go ahead and call. Before we call for the adjournment, we'll say our next meeting is going to take place on Wednesday, October the 6th at 6 p.m. Hopefully, this might be our last Microsoft Meets meeting. We hopefully will be able to get in-person meetings. We're going to work on that with Jim and Melissa, hopefully, and see if we can get something scheduled to meet in person again, being all the COVID restrictions have been pretty much lifted. But I can't guarantee anything until we get straight with Jim Ports and Melissa and make sure we can get it all worked out. So no promises, but we're going to work on it. And can I call for someone to make a motion for adjournment? Mr. Schloss? Mr. Schloss, you can go ahead with your... You must be still muted.
Tracy, I'll make the motion for adjournment. Jim Moran.
And I'll second that, Jack.
Okay. Mr. Schloss, were you able to get through?
Yes, I think so.
Okay, were you making a...
I just wanted to thank you for welcoming me to the commission, and looking forward to getting involved as wherever I may be needed.
Very good. We welcome you to the committee, and this meeting was pretty long, but it's very informative, and hope you got something out of it. And if you have any questions, we're around. Just send us an email or call us, and we'll be trying to answer your questions for you. Thank everyone for tonight. Sorry, such a long meeting, and hopefully we'll see you on October the 6th in person. Thank you.
All right, thank you all.
Thank you.